Hey folks, my name is Dustin Saigo. I just got back from a couple weeks out on the Oregon coast where it rained and poured on me the whole time I was out there. That plus the short day length this time of year tends to get me a little bit down in the winter. So one of the ways I like to deal with that is through creative tying. A good strategy for me has been to go down to the shop and just browse around and pick out some materials that catch my interest, that I think look kind of cool. And a good way to experiment with a lot of new materials is through tying composite loop flies. So we're gonna tie a composite loop baitfish pattern that I tied a lot this winter, and it kind of helped me stay up. So I hope y'all like it. Here we go. All right, so you can tie this fly on basically pretty much any hook you want. This specific fly is gonna be tied for SeaRun cutthroat down in tidewater. So for that, I'm going to use one of these little size 8 saltwater hooks. A lot of times, if I want to tie it a little bit bigger, if I'm just doing freshwater, I really like these trout predator light hooks from Arex. They're really cool. They got a nice kind of an abrupt bend to them, so you can tie right up to it and you don't have to worry about your materials fouling, and they're all gonna flow really nice off the end. But if I don't want my hooks to get all rusty, I'm gonna go ahead and use these saltwater hooks. So for thread, I'm using this GelSpun 50D. It's really nice and thin, and it's not going to build up on you. And for its diameter, it's actually really strong. So when we're doing the composite loop, it'll kind of allow you to really play with it and mess with it and not have to worry about breaking your loop and really getting frustrated. So we're gonna start off here. You can use, whatever you want for the tail. I like using this craft fur. And we're gonna do this one in white. But you'll see we're gonna add a bunch of additional colors to it too. This is a brand new chunk of craft fur, so I didn't comb it out, but I think it'll be okay. You can use bucktail for a tail. You can use some ostrich, and whatever you like, really. I'm gonna get in here and get down nice and close. All right, I'm gonna get in and pull out that under fur, get rid of that real short stuff. Sometimes I'll pull out some of the mid-length fibers and throw those into the composite loop too, but I think today we're just gonna keep it a little more simple. I'm gonna kind of find those longer fibers too and kind of pull them out of the bunch and sort of restack them in there so we don't have too much taper. All right, I'm gonna get some water, get it wet. Water is your friend. It'll really help you tame the materials. And then you can tie these in a lot of different sizes too. You can really go big with them, but I'm gonna tie one that's a little more practically sized for what I like to do. This is basically gonna be kind of like a small par pattern. You can definitely tie this fly much larger, but ooh, easy. Watch those hook points, those are sharp hooks. Okay. Get out of there. Tie it off, cut it close. Okay. Come back to our starting point. Now again, this is it's just a great, really fun fly to tie because you have so many creative options. So I'm gonna add a little bit of this clear black Grizzly Flashabou. Just gonna take a couple of fibers. And then I'm gonna combine that actually. A little water on it so it sticks together here. I'm gonna throw some of this laser. It's kind of like holographic crinkle mirror flash stuff. Really throws a lot of light. And it'll kind of match up with the holographic nature of some of the dubbings we're going to use too. Just grab a couple of fibers here. There we go. All right. Get it wet too, just so I can kind of manage it. I'm going to stick it together. The Flashabou fibers are a little bit longer, but that's okay. We'll just kind of get them basically laid out there. Okay. Then we'll just kind of go from this first side, sort of measure them out. Tail length, you can just go ahead and throw them on there and trim off the excess later if you want to. Okay. And that Grizzly Flashabou is just to kind of give us a little bit of a kind of hint of a darker profile along the tail instead of it just being flat white. Okay. And I'm just kind of lining that flash up on the left and right, and we're just going to go ahead and trim it all off just a little bit longer than the tail. Did I get them all? Almost. Doesn't need to be perfect. Okay, and throw a little more water on there and get it all slicked back. Keep it out of your way. Okay, so now we can go right to our composition. I'm going to use, for the bottom of my scrim, this Ice Dove UV Pearl. I really like this stuff. It's nice and fine. And it's just, I really like the UV. So actually, for the length of the fibers, we do have to be a little bit aware in the back as far as being shorter and not just overshadowing the tail with the body. So we're going to avoid that, A, by breaking the dubbing, making those fibers a little shorter. It might be a little hard to see. I like using this little card. It's nice to have a piece of paper or something like that with a line drawn down the middle. This is actually a card that Jerry French makes. He gave it one to me years back. It's actually really handy for messing with your composite loops. Gives you a nice smooth surface to be able to just kind of pick the stuff up right off it. And there we go. Now you do kind of want, you got shorter fibers in here, which will be the top of your loop, which will be closer to the tail of the fly. You want those a little bit shorter, and you can lengthen out a little bit as you get toward what will be the head of the fly. Okay, so we got our base layer there. Now is the fun part. It's kind of like cooking here. You can kind of form your own recipe. So now you can throw whatever you want in here. Actually, it's pretty fun. I like using this barred UV predator wrap. Again, I like that UV. You might kind of notice that as a theme with the stuff I like to tie. It's kind of ghosty and it's kind of there and then it's not, and really good looking stuff. So kind of measure out, make sure we're not going to be too long here. Again, we really don't want to overshadow that tail. So that's about right. I'm going to start cutting little chunks of this predator wrap off and kind of distributing it. You don't need to go crazy. Okay, cut off another little chunk here. Again, you can kind of go, as you progress from tail to the head of the fly, you can add a little length if you want. Just kind of sprinkle that stuff right in. Yeah. Okay. So now we got our predator wrap in there. One thing I like to do is grab some of this ice blue Flashabou. And I'm just gonna grab a couple of fibers out of here. And this stuff, again, is kinda, again, a little bit pearly and kind of UV in there. So we're actually gonna kind of double it. Find the ends, find the middle, pinch it, cut it. And we're gonna do it again. Gonna find the ends together, find the middle there. Just cut those loose. I'm not too concerned about the length of these because they will sort of blend in with the tail. So I'm just gonna start grabbing a couple fibers at a time and just, predator wraps running away. Yeah. Just sort of distributing on through our composition here. Nice. All right. Now again, you can keep on throwing stuff in here. You could put, like I said, sometimes when I pull the mid-length fibers out of the tail, if I have my loop already composed, or I'll set it aside and then throw some in toward the head of the fly again to give it a little more of a prop, a little more of a big head. All right, next thing is this silver holographic eye stub. This stuff is really cool. Nice long straight fibers. You can just kind of get a little bit out, kind of sprinkle it on there. And again, even though these are longer fibers, if they're a little bit longer in the back, I'm not too concerned because I'm only going to use a little bit. Okay. So again, I'm gonna grab some more dubbing, some more stuff. This is Gunmetal Grey eye stub. Also really cool. It's kind of just basically UV gray. So I'm just gonna take a pinch, not too much. I'm gonna go right up top here because I want a little bit of a luminosity gradient from the back of the fly to the front of the fly. I want a little darker up front. And also, since we're just having fun here, I'm just gonna throw some of this Kingfisher Blue eye stub in. And this will also kind of be our top scrim layer. So just gonna put a little bit on here as we go. It's really fun. Right now it's winter. The days are short. I'm out of the coast, and it's been raining for about 10 days straight. Everything that I want to fish is pretty much like chocolate milk, so it's a really good fly to tie for your mental health when you can't get out, actually, because it's just a fun fly. All right, so there we have our composition. My fingers kind of get a little sweaty sometimes, and the stuff tends to stick to them, so I find that this old deer hair packer got a nice flat edge on it, and I can just kind of iron out my loop a little bit and squash it together so it's a little more of a cohesive piece there. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and drop our loop. Ooh, sorry about that. Drop our loop. And advance our thread. I'm gonna take my nice OPST dubbing spinner here, drop it in my loop. And I'm gonna take this this Loon high tack wax. I tied a long time without using wax, but just like water, it's gonna be your friend. Wax is gonna make your life easier. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and push my composition down and over so I can grab it more easily. I'm gonna go ahead and open my loop, and I don't know if you can see this, but having that wax on your loop, when you pull your loop open, yeah, it's kind of like a grilled cheese or something. Nice tacky wax. All right, so I'm gonna get my composition off the card. I'm gonna open my loop real wide and tuck it way up in there. There. there's our composition. And you can kind of come through, now that you got it in there and you got that wax in there, you can kind of separate out any parts that are a little too dense, or you can compress the parts that are too sparse. It's going to be kind of sparse. Looking good. At this point too, you can measure up your fibers against the body, and if they're way too long, you could come in and kind of recenter them, kind of pull the fibers one way or the other, or you could even come in and, you know, kind of trim them at an angle if you wanted. But I think we're going to be okay. So now, magic. Give it a good spin. Let your loop spin those materials up. And again, you can spin it nice and tight because you got this good GelSpun thread, which is very durable. So I'm just going to take a bodkin first. I'm going to go through and just kind of rub my loop. And you can see some of those longer fibers are just popping up anyway. But I also kind of want to make sure that everything is spun in, distributed nicely, and you can kind of come in and start picking again. You can capture some of the longer fibers there. Start pulling some out. I like to go to the brush, and I'm not just ripping through it because I don't want to tear all those fibers up. I'm just going to kind of go in and pick and lift and start pulling the fibers away from the core, because I want a nice thin core, and you are going to lose a lot of dubbing in this process, but I do want to have a nice hackle, kind of a nice little brush here that I can just wrap right onto that shank. I don't want it to be too bulky, and I don't want that core to be real fat, so I'm just going to keep working my loop until that core gets nice and thin, and I have pretty much all the fibers that I want free. Good, look good. Okay. All right. So now that I've got my loop all brushed out here, and give it a couple plunks. Again, thank goodness for the GelSpun thread. I'm gonna get a good bit of water on my fingers, and I'm gonna start kind of preening, and I kind of let it loose a little bit, kind of find what I've heard people call a kind of a neutral point here, so it's not twisting and untwisting, and just kind of give it about as much tension, kind of find a place where it'll naturally part. Now I'm gonna pinch and rock. That's gonna help this loop really lay flat into a hackle that I can kind of wrap easily. I say that, we'll see how it goes. So then you see you kind of have a relatively short shank on this hook. You don't have a whole lot of room, but I'm going, oh, and here is our hackle. Nice. So I'm gonna go ahead, get our thread out of the way a little bit. Go ahead and give it a couple wraps. And then I'm gonna start, cooperate. Start spiral wrapping forward because I wanna cover up that shank. And I have done, and you can do, a bigger composition, a longer loop, and kind of work it with touching wraps forward. But you kind of end up with a real fat fly that would be great in heavy current, but you know, if you were using it in slower current or still water, it doesn't quite look right sometimes. So I want a little bit of a slimmer profile here, so I'm going sparse composition and those spiral loops right up behind the eye. I think we're good there. Squeaky bobbin. Go ahead and tie it off. A couple stray fibers there. Trim off our loop. Brush Okay, now you could throw a whip finish on that and call it done, and it would totally work. But we're going to sort of continue to have fun with it here. So I'm going to take some of this pink laser dub, just a little bit, not much at all. And this is a nice long fiber dubbing. So I'm going to take that, I'm going to flip my fly over. Maybe we'll kind of come in here and comb it out even a little. Good. And I'm just going to split that dubbing on the thread, kind of leave it toward me a little bit, because this is going to be on the side. I'm going to wrap it right up behind the eye, double it back, and again, kind of give this a little even distribution here. Okay. Now, we're going to take some of this Bruiser blend and cream. These are all, again, this is just this is just having fun now. You don't need to do this. It's just fun. So I'm going to take this nice long fiber dubbing. I'm going to split it on my thread and distribute it front and back and wrap it forward right behind the eye. And I'm going to fold it back. And you guessed it, we've got a little white belly. Sometimes I'll take something like, I've been messing with this red ice dub, which is nice and straight fiber, metallic. It's just like steely blue, but red. And sometimes I'll do the kind of the similar thing that I did with the pink, but a little more under the fly. And I'll use that for kind of like a gill flash, or if you leave it long, it's kind of a cool wounded baitfish effect, and it's nice, but let's not go crazy here. Okay, so then the next thing, similarly to the belly, is we're gonna take, what is this? Dark olive Bruiser blend. We're gonna pull out a little bit. And do the same thing that we did with the belly, except I'm going to bias the fibers a little bit forward. And then again, do that same thing, secure them in. And then double it back. And I kind of want these distributed a little bit, so I'm going to push them around with my thumb. Get them a little bit wider. Good. All right, now, you know, I've tied these with cones, I've tied these with, you know, lead eyes on them, stuff like that. You could jam a fish mask on here right now if you wanted. I just kind of end up just kind of liking the profile the way it is. So throw a lip finish on there, maybe for good measure. And doink. And then you could, again, leave it like this if you want a slimmer profile, or you can go ahead and brush it inside out to really get everything sort of propped up. It's going to give you a little more of a teardrop, and it'll give you kind of a cool, when you're stripping it, kind of a cool breathing, pulsing action. So anyway, that's it. Really fun fly to tie. Very effective fly. You can tie it bigger, you can tie it smaller. You can tie it in any number of color patterns to resemble other things. You can get in there with a Sharpie and drop some par marks on that tail if you wanted to. It's your fly. Have fun with it.